Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Let's kind of jump straight into it. So as you can tell from the title of this video, why I moved to Saudi, is it because of a guy? Let's talk about me moving to Saudi. I have basically taken two different trips to Saudi Arabia. So the first one was a trip I did last year, and it was only for 8 weeks, and it was actually through my company in New York. So for those of you guys that don't know, I am an ESL teacher. So I did the trip through my company in New York, and they had a contract with the Saudi embassy. It was for 8 weeks with other teachers from different parts of the world that worked in my company. So it was really fun. That trip was last year, and it was 8 weeks. Like I said, I kind of did like a solo trip, like an extra week of solo tripping around the Middle East while I had the opportunity. Like, why not? So my trip to Saudi Arabia last year was awesome. Again, we were working for the government of Saudi, and if anyone knows anything about Saudi, they got some money. It was a resort. We were by ourselves, like it was just us teachers. So that was that trip last year. And then this trip this year was basically me venturing out on my own to Saudi. It had nothing to do with my company in New York. It had nothing to do with the government of Saudi. This was me straight up researching, looking for jobs, and I got a job working at a women's university. Actually, it's the largest women's university in the world. Signed a 1-year contract, and I packed my things and I was ready to go. Okay, so now people have the question, like, what made you just decide to sign the 1-year contract, as my African families will say, and just move to Saudi Arabia? Are you okay? Are you, is there, how much money are they paying you? But this is what I would say to answer the question in my video. Partly the reason I moved to Saudi was because of the guy. 50% of it was the job, and 50% of me moving to Saudi was the guy. I think if I didn't have both of those, I wouldn't have gone to Saudi. I met this guy while I was in the Middle East last year. So again, I went to Saudi, I went to Emirates, I went to Lebanon. Just know I met him there. I also last year was just like, I'm done with North America, I need to leave. My initial plan was to go to Europe, but obviously this guy I was talking to was just like, you should come back to the Middle East, there's so many jobs out here, and you know, and I'm just like, I don't know, like it's kind of strict or whatever. And he's like, it won't be as bad, I'll be here for you, I'll do this. And I was like, okay, this sounds good and all that stuff. But one thing I do want to point out though is that anyone that knows me knows I'm an adventurous person, but also I wanted to make sure I was financially secured. Like, ladies, it's cute and all to move away to another city or another country to be with a guy if you think it's worth it. But one thing you do not want to play about is your money, okay? So at that point, when he was trying to convince me to go to Saudi, I was like, okay, I think I'll do it. I like him. I'm gonna see where this goes. And I started applying to jobs. So I think in December I got the message about the university, and as soon as I got the offer, I got my contract, I saw, you know, my salary, I was like, wait, hold up, this isn't bad. Packed 3 suitcases and left for Saudi at the end of January. This video is not all over the place. I think I'm gonna divide it into 2. So the first part is gonna be me talking about just what my job was and how the job environment was for me, the culture in Saudi Arabia. And then the second part will be about this guy. So to be honest, while I was there, overall I didn't really like my job environment, and I'll tell you guys the reason why. One, the main thing was the agency that I got the job through. Advice, guys, if you're gonna go abroad to teach, make sure you do mad research about this company. I did a lot of research about my company, and I saw a couple red flags, but in my head I kind of justified it, like, oh, it's the Middle East, they do, you know, Middle East, so sometimes what we call African time, it's okay, I can deal with it. And I was just like, at the end of the day, I'll have my guy and it wouldn't be bad. I was just finding any reason to make these red flags into green flags. That makes sense. So number one, do not do that. When you see those red flags, be like, stop that shit, move on. But I was just in the mindset of moving to Saudi that I ignored it. So that was one of the reasons that I didn't really like my job. And then the university, it was a good university, but I don't think it registered to me that, oh, it's a women's university, so it's gonna be all women faculty. Being in a building 8 hours a day with just women, my co-workers were women, my manager was a woman, the nurse was a woman, the gate man was a woman. My students were all women. It was a lot. I mean, a week into it, and I'm just like, I can't do this. I need this. It's a lot of estrogen. I need a couple guys in there, just sprinkle it up in there. So that was another reason why that kind of became hard for me. Sorry guys, I'm gonna keep looking. Like, I have notes down, because if I don't have notes down, we'll be talking here for 5 hours. So I'm just looking at my notes. Anyways, so most of the teachers were British teachers, which was also interesting, because then I realized, damn, like, Americans don't become to Saudi, do they? Because I think we were about 311 ESL teachers at the university. We were probably 15 Americans that were there, and I was just like, damn, wow, interessant. So basically, the red flags that I saw about the agency before I came, they fulfilled it. They fulfilled those red flags when I got there. So I mean, it was funny because it only seemed like a big deal to me, because all the other teachers, everyone else is just like, oh, that's how they do. Oh yeah, it's okay for them to pay you on the 6th, even though the contract says they're supposed to pay you on the 2nd. I'm like, motherfuckers, I got auto pay on certain dates. When you fuck up my paycheck, you're fucking up all my bills. Things that where I found to be very unprofessional, and just people will say certain things like, oh, we'll give this to you by tomorrow, and then tomorrow turns into like 3 days, and everyone was just fine with that. I found a big deal, and other people did it. And the thing is that I was kind of mad at myself, because in my head I'm like, I saw this coming, but somehow I convinced myself that it was okay because of a guy. But one thing I would say is that I did love most of my students. I'm not gonna say all my students, because that would be a damn lie, but most of them were super sweet, and I love that some of them were genuinely interested in, learning about my culture, because like I said, Saudi Arabia is a very Muslim culture, and that's enforced into the community, the way they dress, the way they practice, like that. But also, because I was in Saudi, I had to be very, very careful in censoring things I said, because certain things, discussion did not go well over there. Like, one, I couldn't play music in class. Two, I could not mention anything about, dating or having a boyfriend, because dating is not really part of their culture. Definitely can't talk about alcohol and smoking, because those are illegal. What else? So actually, let's segue into the cultural part of the country, since I'm already talking about that. People of the opposite sex always have different entrances to different restaurant and establishments. Okay, they have what they call the single section and the family section. Single section, you would think that means like, oh, if you're single. No, it means a single guy. Single section basically means a man who's a bachelor. Okay, and the family section is for families and females. Like I said, alcohol is illegal, drugs are illegal. I think there's an underground market for that, but I was not trying to find out, because I'm in another man's country and I will not be breaking their rules and find out what they do when you break their rules. So this month is actually the 2nd year anniversary for women driving legally. All right, yeah, so yes guys, 2 years prior to this year, women were not allowed to drive in that country. Clothing, so women always sort of like in an outfit like this. This is called an abaya. Obviously it's all covered up to my wrist and all the way down to my ankle, and then you have the scarf. So the scarves are not required as much. I heard that maybe a couple years ago they're very strict about the scarves, because yeah, they legit have what they call religious police. those religious police were out there basically making sure everyone is abiding by the dress code, the cultural codes. I didn't really see them when I was there this year. Apparently they've kind of like cut down on them. Also, they pray 5 times a day, so that means whenever there was prayer time, which you would hear the announcement from the mosque and stuff, so stores will close for between maybe like 10 to 20 minutes. So when you would go out to go shopping or grocery shopping, you had to keep that in mind to go maybe before or after prayer time. People of the opposite sex, like women, are not really supposed to be you're not really supposed to be interacting with people of the opposite sex unless they're your husband or they're your family. People were always watching. Like, I stayed in an apartment. There was a front desk there 24 hours a day, and they kind of kept an eye on like who was going in and out of the building. So they will, and we're allowed to question you, like, where are you going? If there's a guy going into a female's apartment, they'll be like, we need papers or identity that you are married or you are related. So now let's go over to the guy. I met him last year when I was doing my whole Middle East tour, 6 weeks in Saudi, spent a couple days in Dubai, a day trip to Abu Dhabi, Lebanon. I met him in the middle of in one of them, all right? He's Syrian, but he lives in Saudi. And Saudi does not recognize birthright citizenship, so he's still considered Syrian. He has a Syrian passport. He was an engineer. We're not together anymore. He was cute. He was honest. He was super consistent, open-minded. He was attentive. I mean, also the one thing that at least stood out to me very much was how consistent he was, even after I left. Because when I left the Middle East last year, I'm like, oh, this is probably dead. Like, I'm not putting too much energy into this. But he kept checking up, and I'm like, you know, why not see where this goes? Like, life is too short, man. So, like I said, 50% of the reason I went to Saudi was because of him. I got there, and as you guys know, Rona happened like in March, right? And if anyone close to me knew that my plan this year was to travel. I know a lot of people are saying that their plans was to travel, but this year I literally put on my Facebook post before I left for Saudi, I'm like, I'm not coming back to the US. I am traveling all over the place. My plan was to travel to at least like 10 countries, you know, because I, as a teacher at a university, I had like 3 months of summer off, and I think there was an extra month of like paid vacation or some shit. So I was gonna put that shit to use, and Rona messed that shit up. Like, but you know, I'm not gonna cry about it because, you know, this year is the year where you kind of can't complain about shit because everyone is in the same boat. But anyways, once I realized that Rona wasn't gonna be able to let me travel and like figure out things, I just kind of got in my head a little bit, and I wouldn't say I was depressed, but I was just all up in my feelings. And quickly I realized that I would have to come back to the US because with flights and stuff getting canceled, like Saudi canceled inbound and outbound flights. Jesus, I cannot talk. So I was like, I have to go back home, and I didn't know how to continue this relationship with him. If I just didn't know. I didn't know. Like, I really liked him, but I guess it wasn't strong enough for me to feel like we could keep going, even though everything was up in the air. I think around March or April, we broke up. The early May was when we were done with online teaching, because like I said, we had like summer vacation, and yeah, I was stuck trying to find a flight back home. Like my flights, because I booked regular commercial flights because they were cheaper, they got canceled twice. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm about to be stuck here. So anyways, I ended up having to pay for a charter flight to come back home, and that shit was not cheap, guys. It was I think that was it. I feel like there's so much more I want to say, but I would be here talking forever if I don't shorten it to this point. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please, if you have any more questions about Saudi, my experience, or yeah, my experience working, or how to do research to find a job in Saudi, or my experience of when I was in Lebanon, or you know, the Emirates, let me know that too, okay? So I think that's it. See ya.